Good evening and welcome to the Australian Stock Market Show. Now, the All Ordinaries Index continued last week's bullish momentum to push price above last week's high, so stay tuned as we'll discuss our thoughts on that shortly. We'll also take a look at the All Ordinaries Index, and for our main topic in tonight's show, we get into undervalued metals and lithium stocks that are trending right now. First up, we'll share our hot stock tip for the week, so sit back and relax. Again, tonight is jam-packed as we have lots of emails to answer. We'll also take your phone calls and give you the answers to some of the most important questions around the market. Tonight we're excited to share our thoughts on some great stocks like ILU, BPT, KAR, LTM, the All Ordinaries Index and more. So get comfortable as we'll get into those soon. I'm Dale Gillham and I'm your host for tonight. And joining me are two of Australia's team of highly experienced analysts and professional traders, Janine Cox and Philip Tortevsky. And we together are Australia's most trusted stock market educators. Good evening, team.
Good evening. Did you get your fill of chocolate over the weekend?
From you. From you. It's like she gave me some chocolates and my wife some chocolates, so my wife gave me the chocolate so she wouldn't get fat. And I'm in trouble for eating too much chocolate.
Someone's always left with the bundle.
I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, same thing. My daughter ate most of the chocolate, so...
Oh, that's good. Saved you anyway.
Saved
At least our footy teams won over the weekend anyway. But tonight, as mentioned, we do get into what we believe are undervalued metals and lithium stocks that are trending right now. But first, let's take a look at this week's hot stock tip. Now, Phil, what have you got for us tonight?
All right, so the hot stock tip for tonight is Beach Energy Limited, ASX code BPT. So let's get straight into it now. On your screen is the marketindex.com. And Beach Energy Limited, which was Beach Petroleum before that, if people remember, is an oil and gas exploration and production company headquartered in Adelaide, South Australia. It's got oil and gas productions in 5 basins across Australia and New Zealand. And some statistics on this one. It's had a 2024 year-to-date return of positive 16%, a one-year return of positive 26% versus the sector of 25%, and the ASX 200 of 17, so it's leading that, which is quite nice for the stock. It's got a market cap of over 4 billion, and it is ranked within the top 150, ranked 120 at the moment. So let's get onto the charts right now, and we'll bring it up if we just zoom out here to Beach Petroleum. You'll see on the monthly chart is on your left, weekly chart on the right, and I'll zoom it out to the monthly chart because there's two real things that I wanted to pick up with this stock. And if I zoom it out a bit, you'll see that $1.41, $1.40 level has been a really, really interesting level and important level for this stock. You'll see that back in March 94 and November 06 and all throughout this period of 2012, it provided really, really strong resistance. Only since, the 2016 low, things have slightly changed for this one, which tells me it's time to really start looking at it. And you'll see that obviously since December 2018, it's had periods of where what was previous resistance is now becoming support. And if we zoom in a little bit further, you'll see I've got some numbers marked up here, Janine, which are very interesting. I'll get into the importance of them right now. And it's basically, when we see periods where a stock consolidates like this, it's, we often say wait for confirmation to get that breakout. And that's very, very important. But what you can do in the meantime, when it's doing these things, it's a good time to look at the stock. And within that, you can also, by seeing how the price unfolds, kind of give you an indication of which way it's going to go. So
there's no rush, is what you're saying.
There's no rush, but what I mean by what I just said is that
I was going to ask you that. Simplify it for me.
I'm being a bit of a riddler today, but if we go back to the monthly chart, you'll see that each move as the numbers go along, you've got the longest move there in number 1 down. Number 2, it's a bit of a shorter move. Number 3, it's shorter again. And 4, it's the shortest it's been. So this is telling me that the sellers are getting less and less in terms of how far they want to push the stock down, whilst at the same time the buyers keep touching this $1.80, $1.90 level. And currently the stock's had a really good March, closing on the highs. April started to go on with it. So to me, this is a stock that you really, really need to start looking at right now. and getting your rules and plans in place, because if it does shoot off, it's going to blow.
When you look at stocks like these moving and consolidating to a narrower price, is it always guaranteed though that they're going to break out on the upside?
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, there's three scenarios that can happen. It could break out to the upside, it could continue to go sideways,
Yep.
It could break out to the downside, or it could give you a combination of all those three things.
Yep.
The important thing is trying to judge the relationship between the buyers and sellers in that move. And we always talk about this, getting yourself prepared.
Yep.
It's too late if you're watching this once it's already broken out and the stock's up 40, 50, 60%. Then you need to wait for the next opportunity. But doing your homework and getting ready and prepared for it, that's where the good opportunities are found. So that's all I'm thinking there.
Excellent.
Some really good points, Phil. I really like what you're talking about with Beach Energy. Now that is it for our weekly hot stock tip. Now shortly we'll get into sharing some undervalued metals and lithium stocks, but before we do, right now is your opportunity to get involved in the show and have your questions answered. Now remember, we prioritise phone callers, so call now on 03 9290 9988, or you can text your question to the number on your screen. Now the first caller into the show right now gets a free copy of my book, Accelerate Your Wealth. So pick up your phone and dial 03 9290 9988. Now while you do that, tonight we'll give you our thoughts on the Australian stock market. So let's get into the charts.
On your screen right now is the chart of the All Ordinaries Index, and a very interesting one it is indeed, given that we've seen our market break to new highs. So it's been lovely to watch our market break out up above that high there. Now we know that's around 8,000 points. The trend is looking good. We're seeing higher lows and higher highs as it pushes up. I'm thinking that given that we've seen 1, 2, and I'll just expand this up so you can see it. We've had 2 bars up, 2 bars down, 3 bars up, 1 down, an inside bar and a move up. We may be getting close to a point where it actually starts to slow down a bit, and you guys have been on your bandwagon, haven't you, on your soapbox, can I say that?
Soapbox.
Talking about the All Ords in the market and where you think it's heading in cycles. And
Well, you got on the red cordial last week, so this is where Phil and I go. No, we had too many M&Ms, I think, that day, didn't we? I think too much chocolate.
Yeah, so what you're talking about is the market's going to peak out in April. That's what you're saying, suggesting that it could peak around
Well, we're
that time.
suggesting 2 to 4 weeks up. We're also suggesting April will be a volatile month, so expect volatility, more volatility than we saw in March. We're expecting a peak in April, possibly towards the end of April.
And why is that generally?
I'd have to kill you if I told you.
I think you know the answer. Come on, Phil will tell us. Phil, come on.
Yeah, look, the market has, like it is cyclical, and it has times throughout the year where it does make these corrections. So that is a time period for one of those corrections. And I mean, we've done a big video on this. So for the people that are on YouTube, obviously you haven't had the chance to get onto Talking Wealth. It is a subscription that you do need to get on, but we do cover in detail exactly why we say April is going to be an important
You're
month.
stringing them out, aren't you?
Well, we can't give everything for free.
Can we just show one more thing then?
Oh, well, you can show them something, yeah.
All right,
yeah.
I can show them a little something. Look, what the guys are actually being really cagey about, and I'm going to just show you what it is. You can see there that we've got a seasonality chart here, and this is actually demonstrating the strongest and weakest months in the year for the All Ordinaries. Now, typically, it's showing the first quarter of the year is up, and April being one of the strongest months on our market. July as well, also expected to be a strong month, and December, we did see a good December. So, and April, could rocket off even higher. We're expecting the market could peak out, but it doesn't mean that it's going to stop there. It may go up for another few weeks, is what you're saying.
That's what we're talking about. But our recording last week, which went up on Thursday in talkingwealth.com, it's an hour-long recording with Phil and I just on the All Orders Index, where it's going to peak, when the next crash is going to happen, how it's going to unfold, all the things around what you should be looking for both bull and bearishness. So how to avoid the crash completely and to profit from the move into the peak, and then how to avoid the crash altogether. So that went up, for Talking Wealth viewers, that went up last Thursday. So if you haven't seen that, check it out. But if you're not a Talking Wealth viewer, you can still have a free 7-day trial just by going to talkingwealth.com, and you can actually look at that anyway. But that is it for our thoughts on the Australian market. Now, before we get into our first email, remember To get your questions answered live on air, you will need to text or call into the show. Now, you can also send your questions to info@wealthwithin.com.au and we'll answer them in next week's show. Now, let's get into our first question. Our first email is from Daryl, who says, "G'day Dale, Janine and Phil. Could I please get your view on KAR? I'm interested in this one for the medium to long term. I have a buy rule at $2.11 as long as there is volume support with the stop loss at March 22 or at the March 2024 low. Can I get your view and thoughts on this stock? Regards, Daryl." So Karoon Energy.
Yes, so we've got the charts up now on your screen. You'll see the monthly on the left and the weekly on the right. And to me, we've got, you'll see on the weekly chart, the buy rule that he's got above 211, which I don't mind at all. You know, there's a lot of price action here below 211 that was, you know, the stock cleared through, which basically puts it in clear skies now. So if you were looking at this from recent price action, there is the potential that it could go up here. But that being said, if we look at the stock, it is coming out of a very significant fall from the October highs. Then if I zoom it out on the monthly chart, you'll see that that fall is, compared to the rest of price action, quite significant. And to me, it's only recovered half of what it's fallen. So I would say maybe for the short to medium term, it would be a trade in there. But for the long term, it'd have to do a bit more before I saw that momentum shift strongly back to the buys.
There's a lot of volume there on this from that bottom and this current run. I mean, what's that telling you?
Well, look, obviously there's been selling, so on the downside, so there's been a lot of selling, but it looks like the buyers have come in and picked it up anyway at a lower price. I was just looking and interested in this resistance across here on the monthly chart, and it may be, like you say, Phil, I was thinking more a short-term trade from there, possibly. I'll just grab the percentage tool just to see how far up we're talking about. Probably about 10 or 11% to that level. If it was a short-term trade, I'd be pretty comfortable. But just because of the strength of that level, I'd be suggesting I'd rather wait to see it come up to that level and then see where it goes from there. But if you're already in the trade, you'd just be watching that as a signpost.
Because he's looking medium to long term.
Yes.
So is he on the money or?
Well, until this stock gets into a proper trend, and that's really part of what we're going to be talking about tonight.
Yep.
In the second half. But when we look at trends, if it's in a nice trend, then yeah, medium to long term is great. But this is actually nowhere near ready for that. That's why Phil's saying short to medium and why I'm saying short term.
Okay, now if you do want to give us a call and ask a question, give us a call now on 92909988. We look forward to getting your phone calls. Now we have an email from Gerard who says, "Hi Janine, Phil and Dale Allchem. You covered in one of your shows in December 2023 has completed a merger under which a new entity, Arcadium Lithium, has been formed in 2024. I would love to have your analysis on LTM tonight and advise me if it would be worth buying right now, as it is undervalued at $6.44 and fair value at $16.37. Please, kind regard, your loyal subscriber, Gerard." So LTM.
These questions are all awesome, aren't they? Because it's all related to our topics.
Well, I'd love one of our graduates to call into the show. And if you're a graduate of ours, call into the show and have a chat, because we'd like to get a question from one of our graduates of our courses, because I think you guys have got some great questions as well. But they tend to leave them till the second part of the show, don't they?
That's a good point. Look, just with this one, it's interesting because I think we talked about this one in the show last week or the week before.
Yeah, it wasn't long ago.
And we showed them the delisted chart and then the one that's the new chart, which doesn't have much history on it, just to get a feel for how far. It was exactly the same stock, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
And we showed how it had fallen away after it's actually changed into the new code and new trading screen. We have got a copy of that here, haven't we?
Yes.
To show. So that's actually all the data that's available on LTM. And look, in the short term, we can't make any heads or tails of this data, which is why you really need to go back and have a look at what the original chart was showing. But, it has to do a lot before we even know whether this is, in a good position to be looking at. I mean, you could look at it now, but it's not ready yet, nowhere near.
And it's a good point you raised, because a merger happened here, so you're not looking at the same thing. It was one company beforehand, now it's something completely new. If we were just to use the delisted data, and as you can see, this new stock's down, or sorry, LTM now is down at around that $7 mark. So if I just use the trend arrow, just to show a bit of perspective what it's done since, if I just hide that, it's literally done this. It's gone down to about here. And then this is where the stock's currently positioned. So, I mean...
Well, we were looking at it last week more in percentage terms. So in terms of looking at how far it's fallen on the new chart, and then how far it's, where was it when it closed before it delisted, just to get an idea about how it looked. And that tells us that this stock needs to be trending up or start turning around before we'd even consider it. Nothing's undervalued when it's falling.
I mean, Gerard's mentioned in his email that it's undervalued at $6.44 and fair value at $16.37.
And why?
And what I'm seeing on that chart doesn't reflect any of that.
Well, why isn't it going up?
Price
Correct.
tells you
why isn't it going up?
Price will tell you what's fair value.
Yeah,
but that's the thing. So we're going to talk a lot about that in the second half of the show, about this sort of stuff, about fundamental value and intrinsic value, those sorts of things. But at the moment, that chart looks CRAP, which doesn't suggest it's fair value at $16 at all. So that's a huge difference between $6 and $16.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Massive difference.
And that's where a lot of people get caught up in, just sticking to looking at things like fundamentals and projections, forecasts, and putting some value to that, because, I mean, as you can see, it doesn't always work out that way.
It doesn't add up, does it, at the moment?
No, that's the thing is, I think, Gerard, I think he's put too much into that fundamental value of it, because the stock really does look CREP now. I'd be looking somewhere else for a buy, especially for the medium to longer term anyway. But now we do have a caller on the line. Now, welcome to the Australian Stock Market Show. Who have we got on the line?
Jack.
Hi, Jack. How you doing? Thanks for calling in. What's your question for us tonight?
I'd like to ask about Telstra. Driving me nuts at the moment. I've owned it for a while and it's just going sideways, and it won't stop going sideways. I've asked you to look at it a couple of times before, but I'm just considering deserting it and looking at other stocks to buy into.
Yeah, I think the Telstra shop should have beer and wine there so that we can drown our sorrows about that stock. I think that's what we should be doing. But the guys do have it on the screen, so I'm assuming you do own it, because you're wondering whether you should continue to hold on or exit. Is that correct?
No, I'm thinking of deserting it because I've lost faith in it, really.
Okay, cool. Well, the guys will be able to answer you. Thanks for calling in, Jack. Telstra. Telstra's almost a four-letter word at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, look, to me, just listening to that, the real question is, what were you trying to achieve from this trade from the first
That's a really
in the first
good
place?
question.
If you're looking at this from a long-term perspective, then I would say to you, Jack, it's going sideways. It's not actually breaking down. So, you might be picking up dividends in the process here, earning income, and then eventually the stock, once it decides to break out of this sideways move, it might move in your favour. But if you're looking at this as a more of a shorter term type trader, and you're sick of being stuck in the sideways action, then go look for something else.
To me, there's two questions here. It's like, what's it likely to do into the future? And what you're saying is, it's not going to go down any further than what it is. It's pretty much holding, and then probably the next move's going to be up, not down. So,
based on history, yes.
Based on history. So obviously he's saying you're deserting the stock. He's had it for a little bit a while. But the second question is, well, if I sell out of Telstra, where do I put my money?
Yeah.
Do I put it into another stock, and then how do I know that stock's going to go up or it might go down if you get it wrong? So what's the choice there? Do you want to make some comments on it?
That's a really good point, because you're going from bad to worse. Is that the
Well, you could
idea?
be going from bad to worse. So this, because I know sometimes people mean, this stock I've had's been going sideways for 8 months or 10 months. And they jump out and then the stock takes off.
That's
But
right.
what you wouldn't do as an investor is, if you're into sort of, stocks that are not volatile, medium to long term is the thinking, go and put it into something that's highly volatile, like one of the lithium stocks. I mean, it might do better, but then it might not. That's the
true.
risk. People then often do that, don't they? They
Lithium
get
hasn't been
bored.
doing that well the last few years.
I think it also speaks to the fact that, if you bring up a chart, and let's bring up the chart of Telstra, you'll see that this stock has actually been going sideways since July 2021.
I know.
So if that's something in itself there, being able to read charts and being technically sound, because looking at it from July 2021, it's really going sideways. And if you're looking for stocks that you want to trend, you want to see trending, you'd want to see them trending first on the chart. So, how we see that nice...
But it's interesting, isn't it? Like, because, you could have Telstra doing this and then all of a sudden it takes off.
Very, very possible.
I just want to show an example, just while we're on the subject, if I may.
If you like.
If you look at Wesfarmers is a classic example. Now, it went sideways for a long time. Have a look at that move.
Yep.
People, as Phil was saying,
that's 6 years nearly.
Investors were getting a dividend all through that process, and then all of a sudden, the stock takes off. So, and even through COVID, it didn't take long to recover and it's gone ballistic since then. So that's the thing for medium to long-term investor. What you're saying is that you stick with why did you invest in the first place? What was your strategy? And, don't move away from it.
Well, Telstra's been in a rebuilding phase. We know that. So therefore, eventually it's going to take off because it's a great company. It's not falling away. So what you're actually saying is it depends on your strategy, Jack. If your strategy is medium to longer term, nothing to worry about. But then if you do sell it or you exit the stock, then you've got to think, well, what do I do with the money now? Do I put it in the bank? You're going to earn more money on dividends from Telstra than the bank. Or do I put it into another stock and take the risk that that other stock will take off, like Janine was saying, something like that. But anyway, that is our take on Telstra. Now it's time we get into our main topic for the night, which is on undervalued metals and lithium stocks. Now, if you've been looking at these areas, you will know that many metals and lithium stocks are trading well below their highs. Now, for those of you who are astute, you will know this, and as this suggests that there's good potential to pick undervalued stocks so you make big profits. That is, if you have the right strategy. Now, selecting the top trending stocks, and you might enter at the right time. So tonight we'll share some insights with you on how you can spot these opportunities. Now, as I just mentioned, commodities and in particular lithium are way off their highs as they've experienced dramatic falls due to changes in supply and demand. But think of this, commodities are finite resources. So the good news is they will eventually rise again. You just need to be patient. Before we go into the charts, the question has to be asked, why should investors be watching metals and minerals, and particularly lithium right now? I want to ask you, Janine.
Well, it's a bit like this, isn't it? It's like if something gets sold off heavily, there's going to be a time when it is one of the strongest areas in our market again.
Something gets too cheap, that's what you're saying.
Something becomes too cheap. And the person was talking before about undervalued stocks. And I'm not saying that, all of the lithium stocks are undervalued at this point, but what I'm saying is just be ready and watching them, because you think about what the big funds do. The big funds, they lay in wait, they have the analysis, it might be 2 or 3 years out, they're watching the cycles, the whole business cycle, the economics of it, and they know what's coming up next. And what I'm suggesting is to be more like that rather than just jumping on the latest news.
Yeah, because they're also looking at all the stockpiles of each commodity and the demand for each commodity, where it's likely to happen, where it's likely to increase and decrease, anything, aren't they?
Exactly.
So have you got anything you want to add to that?
I mean, you just said it perfectly. As a trader, that's all the stuff, all from the outside is great, but profits and big profits. Anytime stocks or markets are at lows or all-time lows, if you can get that right and pick it before it makes that next move up, that's, in some regards, life-changing money.
And 2025, they're saying that lithium is going to be moving up again. It's going to be turning around and will be stronger again. So, you and I both know that when we look at what happened prior to the GFC, there was that period there's always a period of doubt as the market's rising. It doesn't matter whether it's commodities or the whole market. There will be times when the market pulls back. You're saying we're going to have a low in April, market could take off again, and then we get a bit of a slowdown next year. If lithium is timed right, and we do see that low, come out of that low next year, it'll be right on time for that last part of the boom in the market, which could lead to some really good returns.
Well, look, I'm agreeing with what you're saying, but with lithium, what we've seen over the last few years, a lot of people trying to trade them for quick, short profits and get burnt.
Yes.
So you'd see a lot of traders, because how many times have we been talked to people asking us lithium stocks in the last 2-3 years?
Oh, lots.
There's bucket loads.
So they've got their thinking right in terms of looking at things that have been sold off heavily.
Alrighty, well now the term undervalued, as Janine mentioned, gets bandied about, and unfortunately investors are like moths to the flame when they hear that term. Now let's take a look at the definition according to the Corporate Finance Institute. Now, an undervalued asset is an investment that can be purchased for less than its intrinsic value, where the intrinsic value is what a rational investor would pay. But intrinsic value is also something that is subjective and subject to analyst biases, which means it might be unreliable at best and at worst just may be wrong. Now, that said, unless you know how to read a chart, you won't see what's really going on until it's too late. This is a big reason why the masses generally exit near the market bottoms. Now, we've seen stocks referred to as undervalued, yet they've experienced significant falls. Now, surely, if a stock is undervalued, it should be rising, right? So my suggestion is never believe everything you hear. Always test and validate. I also suggest that instead of trying to find undervalued stocks, you should focus your attention elsewhere. So what should you be watching? I'm going to go to you, Phil. What do they be watching? Because we had that question just before, didn't we?
We did.
Undervalued, what's fair value?
And again, it always comes back to me, what are you trying to achieve from the market? You know, what type of trader are you going to be? Are you an investor more long-term? Are you a trader that's looking for a cash flow type strategy? And depending on what your answer is, that's going to lead you down a certain path in terms of stock selection. We know that materials and energy, they're very volatile. So they speak to a certain type of risk personality, a certain type of trader. And if you're looking for that really big growth, then sure, I would be looking in those two areas. That said, with volatility, it requires experience.
Well, undervalued, fair value, overvalued, none of those three terms tell you direction.
No, they don't.
Trending.
So what you're saying is we need to look at what's trending, yeah?
I was an accountant, right, in my previous life.
And you still admit it.
I know, I shouldn't, right? But they're forecasts.
Yeah.
These are figures on what should happen, you know, earnings in the next quarter,
Yeah,
what
it
should
doesn't
be.
matter what stock or what time frame over which you're trading, a short-term trader, medium-term trader, long-term trader, is all of those groups are going to benefit from knowing what the direction is and to be able to read the trend on the chart. So important.
The price will give you the real information that's happening current. It's not looking at what's happening 5 years in front. It's not looking at what's happening yesterday. Whatever the price is today, that's what happened with the stock today. And using that information, you're getting the most real bit of information that you can get from a market. So study that.
You know, there are a lot of people holding lithium stocks that have held them through that rise and they just want to know what to do with them.
Correct. And the thing is that if they understood the price chart and analysing the price chart and direction, they would be making so much more money because they would know when to get in, when to get out. And that's what these fundamentals, you know, fair value and undervalued don't tell you. They don't tell you the direction, they don't tell you, because to me the price on the chart, that's the fair value, isn't it? That's what people are willing to pay.
That's
correct.
You sell your house at an auction, that's what people are willing to pay. And you might think, oh, I got more than I thought or I got less than what I thought, but that's what the market's willing to pay.
But isn't it interesting though, someone says something's undervalued and people trust it.
Correct.
And yet they can go and look at a chart that the price is still falling, but it doesn't raise enough of a question to think, well, okay, I can get this cheap. That's the thought process.
Why
but it
would
doesn't
somebody
raise
sell an asset for less than it's actually worth?
Yeah.
And that's what you're talking about. If it's undervalued, why people keep
Why
selling it?
aren't the big money going into it?
Why aren't the big money going into it anyway? Now, moving on, before we get into the charts to take a look at some great trending stocks, for you to put on your watch list, so that's what we want to do. Now, if you want to learn how to recognise trends, do one of our courses, or you can start by grabbing a copy of my first book. It's still free on the Wealth Within website. You just have to pay the postage. So right now I want to challenge the team to look at two metal stocks which trend well so they can share with you what you can learn from those trends. You want to bring those up, Phil?
Sure. We'll bring up Mineral Resources right now. That'll be the first stock and a name that everybody knows. So
everybody talks about Min, yeah?
Everybody talks about Min. And look, you can see just one look at this chart. Since the stock came about in that 06 period, it's, you know, trended relatively well. We've seen a period where we're on the monthly chart now as well. So I know, Janine, once we get into the weekly chart, you'll see a lot more trends. And look, how about we do that? Because it'll show you, you know, trends within trends. And how do we identify trends was your question, right? And now that takes being able to understand a chart and read price. And we have tools in place that I've learned, you know, doing and you've learned through our time studying. And they're super important because when you can understand how to read a trend, you're understanding the momentum of a stock, reading the momentum of a stock. And you're not going to make any money unless you understand that and follow the momentum of price.
Yeah, because you're always fighting the market if you don't
Exactly.
know.
We only make money if a stock moves, which if we work out what that is, it's volatility and momentum.
Yeah.
And we can get the momentum right, then that's where the money's made. So being able to learn how to do that and read that, that's the secret sauce. If
I
you
know
will.
a lot of people, they go, oh yeah, I know how to do, I know trends, but they really don't, do they? The majority of people out there,
Well,
when you talk about what is a trend, they go, blah. I go, no, that's not a trend.
Because it looks easy.
Well, they're
'Cause it
shown
looks
with
easy.
moving averages to recognise trends on daily charts, which is not a trend.
This is not a trend. So we've got another chart, haven't we? So that was MIM. Do you
Yeah,
you
this
finish with
one-
MIM?
Yeah, I'll do this one if you don't mind.
Sure,
Go
yeah,
for it.
please.
Okay, I particularly like S32, and the reason being is this one's a really simple one to explain from an educational point of view because the trends are so beautiful. So when people say to me, oh, you can't trade long term, just have a look at that. You can get in, there's heaps of entries all the way up that trend, and it lasts.
That's 2 years.
Yeah, a couple of years, and that's really for a medium to long term trader. That's a really nice opportunity. So we've seen 2 of those over the history, but what's beautiful about this also, even though we don't like those times when stocks go down if we're holding on to them, is the fact that the trend is really orderly. So you just can see a pattern unfolding on this stock here. So what we're expecting is from this point here, the potential is that S32 is going to take off at some point. It's much easier to trade these nice trending sort of stocks than ones that just look like a dog's breakfast.
And the skill here, Janine, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is that not only, because we can look at this in hindsight and say, oh yeah, it trended well, but the real skill is identifying early
When
on
it changes.
when it's trending, for one, and staying with that trend all the way throughout,
Yep.
and 2, when it's about to reverse.
But that's what a lot of people don't do. They get into a stock that starts trending and then they jump out because they're afraid of losing their profit. And they just cut this trend off at its knees, and then they go and try and find another stock that might be trending to try and do the same thing again. But
That's
they
the-
leave so much profit on the table, don't they?
That's the biggest killer to any trader. I mean, you could have the best strategy out there. If you don't let your profits run, it's going to kill you at the end of the day.
Yeah, I totally agree with that anyway. Well, thanks team how about we get into sharing what we believe are the best lithium stocks to buy and when the time is right. So you want to bring up the charts on those, Phil?
Yep, we've got the lithium watch list up here now.
Yeah.
And Janine, do you want to get onto this one because this was your selection?
Yeah, with lithium, I thought I'd just quickly show a few stocks that are in this area, lithium and metals. So we've got Pilbara Minerals, Sayona Mining, Core Lithium. I mean, Core Lithium has been, one that quite a few people have asked us questions about in the past. Latin Resources, Argosy Minerals. IGO is a really interesting stock. That's actually been trading down for quite some time, and also in the iron ore area. Liontown Resources, Wildcat Resources. These are the sort of stocks that have the volatility that could potentially make money, but some of them have just been trading down, and you shouldn't just assume that because they've made money in the past that they are going to be the ones that you're going to be trading in future. So let's just take a look now at the first stock on our list. This one is a big one. Obviously, Pilbara Minerals we talked about on our show where we were looking at market corrections and crashes, and how sometimes some of these stocks are highly shorted stocks, and Pilbara Minerals was one of the ones that it was at the top, wasn't it, Phil, of the list?
Yeah.
So therefore, you've got to be very cautious about it, but also recognise there's an opportunity here and will be at some point. I'm not suggesting it's right now, but with some really good rules on this stock, you can at least have an opportunity to trade it and be relatively safe in the market. There's a nice support level at the moment. The good thing about these levels is if it takes out the low here in January, and I'll just expand up the chart so we can see that a bit better. If it takes out any of these lows here, obviously it's going to continue down and you just sit there and wait a bit longer. But if it takes out this high here, then we could be challenging the all-time high and moving up again. So definitely one to watch because it's the biggest one in the space, but it's just important to have that awareness about the short sellers being highly involved in this stock at the moment.
Can I ask a question? Because obviously that watch list you showed, there's huge differences between the market cap on all these companies.
Yeah.
You know, like obviously this one was one of the big ones, Pilbara, but there were some that were, you know, quite small.
Well, it's important to show the differences in the trends with some of these ones. So, like with
Can
Pilbara,
you explain that though, in terms of how they're different?
Well, far more patchy in terms of the lower liquidity type stocks and less reliable, I would have to say, than the bigger stocks. It's much easier to tell when the stock's going to turn on a bigger stock than it is on these smaller ones, because some of these smaller ones, you know, these are the ones that people buy and they think that they've all of a sudden gone from zero to hero overnight. The stocks have doubled. They've just gone straight up in a month or two, and they're thinking they're going to go more. And then all of a sudden, a month or two later, they could be right back down to where they started. And that's the sort of, you know, you don't want to be in those lower liquidity shares, even though they might seem a bit sexy, faster, sort of moving stocks that people might, you know, these are ones get talked about in a lot of the publications on chat forums, but that's probably even more good reason why to avoid them.
So if everybody's talking about it, stay out basically from that point of view.
But that's what you get, you know, when you're looking at particularly lithium, you know, it's one of those sectors where you're going to get a lot of stocks that are that highly illiquid type stock, and then you get stocks like Pilbara and IGO, and they do change throughout their life cycle. Like I'll bring up IGO, or let's go back to Pilbara, and this is a good example. You can see, if we're on the weekly chart here, look how this stock was back in 2010 all the way to 2015. I mean, if you could make money out of that, then good luck. But the stock's literally gone sideways and done nothing under 10 cents for such a long time.
And that's a mug's game, isn't it? Trying to trade these stocks when they're in that phase, rather than waiting for the trend to establish.
Yeah,
and that's what you just said it perfectly, waiting for the trend to establish. And I mean, it's people don't know what they don't know as well. So like, you know, you almost have to, you feel sorry for people because they think this is the right thing to do.
There's been a great story.
Buy cheap.
You know, but some of these mines take years and even decades to really come to fruition.
So we got another stock?
Yes, we do. IGO is another one. So on your chart right now is IGO. Now this one from the get-go was a lot more liquid than a lot of its counterparts. So obviously it's had that, as Janine said, there are periods throughout these miners where they can take a long time to get going. And this one, although it looks like, you know, looking from the outset on the monthly, it has been going sideways as I hover my mouse cursor around. I'll bring up the price percentage tool.
So as a trader, how many metals, so we like metals and lithium or metals and nickel, all sorts of different stocks that, you know, whether it's a mineral stock or a metal stock purely, we like to have a group of those stocks on the watch list. But how many stocks would you suggest that people need to have on the watch list of these type?
Look, I mean, if you're, again, that's like a question where you can go anywhere with it, but I mean, if you're one of those investors...
Say as a percentage of the overall...
I wouldn't necessarily look at it like that, you know, because I mean, if you're an investor and you're looking for diversification, then okay, sure, you've got a portfolio and you want to spread your risk across different sectors, fine. But you can also be a specialist
and only trade a different way though. To me, I look at it as how much work is involved in managing my portfolio and how much time have I got available. So if a stock is quite volatile, it takes more time than a Telstra, you know what I mean? So I'd be looking at these stocks and go, okay, well, what kind of time I've got to manage my risk in here.
So what you're saying is with Telstra, you might only have to look at it once a month.
Correct.
With other stocks, you have to look at it every day.
Yeah.
To that point also, this will give you volatility that Telstra can't. So if you're more of a short-term trader and looking for volatility growth, like if I just bring up the price percentage tool and hover through some of these moves, you know, since January 09 to December 010, about a year, it's 330% rise. And if you're looking for that volatility and trying to trade short term, these are stocks that are going to give you that volatility you're looking for, you know, 90%, 82%. So again, it goes back to...
I'm sure the IGO CEO would love you.
Oh, look.
You're pumping up his stock as a great stock.
I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it's trying to achieve what you want to get out of the market. And if you're looking to trade for volatility and quick volatility, then you're not going to trade at Telstra.
So would you buy this one now?
Well, that was my question. Well done.
Okay. Well, no, I wouldn't. Not just yet. I like the fact that it is coming into this.
I'm just putting the pressure on you, aren't I?
That's okay. I mean, I'm used to it by now. But the fact that it's had this really big fall since the all-time high in November 22, I don't love the fact that it's fallen like that. But there is some solace in that it is coming into this consolidation period around that $7. So again, we always say trade on confirmation. So it's a bit early for me, but one to look at for sure.
Maybe a few months.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
okay.
like it.
What's
'cause
the next stock?
I
You like it?
I like it because the moves down are getting smaller. You can see on the weekly chart there, which just shows a bit of a slowdown in this whole action. So I'm liking that move at the moment.
But you're not buying it at the moment.
Not buying
You've
it
been
at the
saying. So we're both watching it for a couple of
Yes.
months anyway, at least. But put that on your watch list, everybody. So what's the next stock, Phil?
Now the next one is Liontown Resources, and this is another one of those stocks. I mean, this one's actually a bit more illiquid, I would say, just by looking at price action, but definitely volatile. I mean, you're seeing moves on this one making since the all-time high, it's gone down 70, 80 odd % within a matter of 6-7 months. So it is a stock that is very volatile. I don't love it in terms of the volatility, and that's the point there. It's working out whether you can trade these stocks. For me, that's important. So whilst it's nice to get volatility, the first thing to do would to research and go, is this liquid enough for me to be able to transact at the prices I want to transact at? And it is getting better. I mean, if you look at the stock since the beginning, it was very, very illiquid back.
I mean, it's not reliable though, is it? Looking at it in terms of if you're looking for a stock that could have that repeatability, IGO had that repeatability in terms of the moves. This one's had one really long run up. We just don't have that reliability yet in terms
So why
of
is it on your list?
because it gives us that point
Example.
of discussion, to show
okay.
the difference. Yeah.
Because it's an important point, because you've said straight away, you've said it numerous times on this show, I need to be able to transact at a price that I need to transact at.
Yeah.
You know, not just any price. And this is a full-time trader telling you these sorts of things. And if you're not listening, then why aren't you listening to it? Because this is how Phil makes his money. He doesn't need to be sitting on this panel with Janine and I. He makes his money from that, and Janine and I are professional traders. So we're giving you the best of what we're talking about here. And a lot of people will try and pick some of these small stocks and go, oh, it can go up 100%. But if you can't get in at the right time and out at the right time, then you're going to get nothing, pretty much. And that's really what you're saying, isn't it?
Exactly.
Getting down to that.
Exactly.
And so this one's going to be a little bit more challenging stock for them to trade. So how would they minimise their risk and obviously maximise their potential on it?
I would actually, if I was looking for one of these shares, I would be lining them up, doing the back testing on them and having a look at the trends and looking for that reliability. You know, it's a bit of a road test, I think, between the shares to make that call as to, because you obviously can't trade everything. So
No, you've only got a finite amount of money.
Yeah, you've just got to find the ones that resonate with you. And sometimes when you've got that knowledge, it's just a matter of flicking through the charts and seeing how it works. You know yourself that's one of the tests that we did when we used to run the live workshops on the traders when they'd come along, and we'd just cycle through those charts and it'd be amazing what people could see. And just from that process, they would pick the stocks that they like.
Yeah, I think a lot of traders overthink things. That's one of my
exactly.
things. Because so many times I've said to traders, stop thinking so much. It's not that hard. Once you understand some basic rules and some strategies, it's easy to trade. Don't keep overthinking it. But what's the next stock?
So
Alright.
next we've got
Yeah.
Wildcat.
Wildcat.
This is one for you, Phil.
Wildcat, this is definitely one to stay away from. But again, it's a perfect example of what you see at this end of the market. You know, you do see those stocks and it's a good example for everyone to see. Okay, just by looking at a chart, you can, really decide, literally with one look, whether this is worthwhile trading or not. And I know some of you might be saying, looking at this and saying, okay, well, it's gone up. Since this, and we'll be exact, because no one's ever going to be exact, but let's be exact, it's
That's
gone up
massive, isn't it?
over 2,500%, which is totally fine. But throughout this whole period, let's say you bought it here in February 2011, you've waited almost 10 years, 12 years for you to see any kind of return on your money. And this is a good story. There are stories that when it gets to these levels that,
That's
true.
They
less
get
than a cent.
delisted, they get
Exactly. So,
Okay, so
and that's the
if
risk.
someone was in it now and they're holding it as at this week, should they be selling it right now?
Look, I don't know the liquidity on this thing, so if they can sell it at this level, look, it all comes back to what you've tested and what plan you've got for the stock. I mean, it's definitely shown some legs, and I like the fact that the bars in terms of length are expanding, which tells me perhaps that there is more liquidity coming into this. So it looks like the character of the stock is changing a little, which it was like back, since it listed. So I'm actually liking that. That's a bonus for me. In terms of buying and selling it, I'd have to, see buy prices, but it's going up. So If it's going up, why?
Well, I think at the moment it's going down a little bit.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think as long as it stays above that 60 cents, it's be okay. It
Yeah, I
starts to
think
move
I
up.
agree with you there.
You know,
and if it
'cause it
gets
looks
above
good.
80 cents, then it could take out that dollar, which would make me happy because I'd be seeing the stock get
Well,
above
I
a
think
dollar
it looks,
again.
I mean, for us, the small one that you're talking
Yeah.
about, we're not talking about Pilbara here.
No.
You know. So to me, when it's not a MIM, and I think for the price of that and the liquidity, that's a pretty good stock actually to stick on your watch list. So if you are a little bit more, can I say, experienced in trading, you've got some good solid rules around, I think this one's a great one to stick on your watch list. So, okay, another one.
All right, next one is we've got Piedmont Lithium. Now, this one has got a lot of history to have a look at here, which makes it interesting. So, again, it's another one of those ones that's, can I call it a bottom trawler? I spent a lot of time
Oh, I like
What's
that
it
word.
tracking
Of course
along
you
the
can.
bottom.
That's a kind way of saying it.
Okay, and then, we have this nice move up, this initial rise, and I like the fact that then we saw the consolidation out of COVID. Look at the rise that we saw. Think about the sort of return that stocks were making out of those COVID lows and what this has done. Not as good as the last stock we looked at, but this is what I was saying, Dale. This is one of the examples of those stocks that's almost come back to right where it started.
But this could be one of the example of what you were saying, how people bought
Yep.
and then they hang on for even a day as it's falling away with those lithium stocks, some of those
So
ones.
these sort of stocks you cannot do that with.
Because I can guarantee from looking at that chart, a lot of people that bought it were the younger people
Yep.
that were sitting at home and going, okay, I've got my little app on here, and they're seeing a chat forum and they're trading because they're not at work because we're all locked down here in Melbourne, you know, the 5,000 lockdowns we've had. And they were trading this, and now they probably haven't sold a lot of them, and then they've got stuck in this stock.
And another point is, I mean, we're on a monthly chart here, so a monthly chart here looks, even though it is very, very sharp, it actually looks quite clean. But I'm just going to do something, and I haven't tested this, but I'm going to go on the daily chart here just to show you something. And like you can see that this stock gaps a lot. So if you're, a trader, let's just say it pretty much did nothing all throughout this period until it started getting some traction here, and then it gapped up literally on the 18th of September 2020 to the 28th of, what's this one? The next day, the Monday, right? So imagine you're getting ready to trade, looking at a stock that you want to buy, and you open up the your broker, whatever it is, and the stock's up 50, 60% on the day.
On the day, and they're open.
How many people are then going to say, oh, you know what, that's a great point to buy?
No, they'd be saying no.
Right? They say, oh, wait. So you wait again, and then the next day, it's up another 80% on the day on the open. So it's like, these stocks are so tricky to trade.
And then you get FOMO and you buy the next day and it goes down.
Correct, and it's already gone up, 100 odd percent. So you need to understand this market. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Okay.
That's a really good point. Can I just say one more thing? And I want to talk about just what Phil was talking about before, but on the weekly chart this time, because we've done some shows where we've talked about these sort of patterns unfolding. There are safer times to get into these types of stocks. This same formation that we're seeing on the chart there over a series of weeks unfolded on so many stocks that we looked at in the last couple of years that we did on the show, and then we see this massive rise that came out of it. See, that's what you want to use these for, is an example of what to look for. So this is what we're trying to help you with, so you can see things like that if you're wanting to trade these more volatile stocks. Like Phil's saying, you don't want to be in there and along the bottom all that time, and you don't want to be in there along the rise and then stay in the whole time until it unfolds and falls away. You want to be in and out. So it's, how do I do that, and what do I need to know in order to get in and out at the right times?
So what do you like about this? Because you put this on the list of stocks you like.
Because this has actually had a couple of really good trends, right? So especially at the start, but then how long did it take before we saw those trends unfold again? We didn't. See, there's really odd movements through this volatile period, which to a trader shows us how you wouldn't be in it. Like, there's just no, logic there to be in these sort of moves. But waiting for one trade that can set you up and for life, let's say, on multiple stocks you find the same thing. And it could do it again. So this is what I'd be watching for.
Right now, this is looking really, really interesting. So I can tell that you're really interested in this stock. So stick that one on your watch list too, because it does look really interesting. So all of those stocks are probably for the next couple of months, watch out for buy signals. So just make sure, obviously, if you're less experienced, please make sure you stick with the bigger stocks. If you're more experienced as a trader, then you can go for the lower cap type stocks. But anyway, for our talkingwealth.com subscribers, we have more on lithium trends and trend lines after the break, so stay tuned. Well, that's it for our topic tonight. Now stay with us, as we still got plenty of emails and stocks to go through. But before we get into these, for those watching on YouTube and Facebook, you can watch all of tonight's show, plus the special additional exclusive content from tonight's show on talkingwealth.com. So head over now and grab your free 7-day trial on talkingwealth.com. You can watch our Australian stock market report every Monday, where we share our views on the market plus some great buying opportunities. Now, just last Thursday, as we mentioned, Phil and I recorded a 1-hour video on when we believe the next stock market crash will occur and how the market will unfold before that. More importantly, how you can recognise the signs so you profit more. And if that's not enough, you'll also get hundreds of amazing interviews with global industry experts in the stock market, finance, gold, money management, mindset and well-being, fintech and artificial intelligence, business, and loads more. This is all on talkingwealth.com. Now moving on, if you want to talk to us about a stock or have a question, pick up your phone right now and give us a call on 03 for Melbourne 9290 9988. That's 03 9290 9988, or you can text the number on your screen. Now if you're one of our students, pick up the phone. Now while we wait for your phone call, we're going to get into one of our next emails. Now our next question is from Damien, who says, "Hi guys, Luca rose 16 cents today. I figured I would cut to the chase and ask when I should buy." Ha ha ha. He says, "Just kidding, but could you please let me know your thoughts for the short term? Thanks, Damien." Luca for Damien, what do you reckon? Up 16 cents today.
Up, yeah, buy,
You're
buy,
laughing already.
No, I mean, look, it's quite interesting. If we just go to the charts here, it's coming out of that really significant fall from June 2023. So to me, it's one of those scenarios where if we were to measure the buyers versus the sellers, right now the sellers have definitely shown their hand. We are seeing actually some buying coming in out of this low in January. So if I've got any hat on and I'm looking at this from a short-term point of view for now. It would have to do a lot more for me to start getting more confidence that the buyers are really going to start attacking back to take some dominance back from these sellers that came about during that fall. But if we look on the weekly chart, we do like to see when stocks do fall, like Janine said previously, that the moves are getting smaller. It is starting to give you that consolidative type of price action. So from a short-term perspective, it looks okay. What do you think, Janine?
Yeah, look, I think you've done really well there.
I love the way Phil does the charts. You can tell his European background because he points at the chart and uses his head.
Soon I'm going to start.
Our viewers can't see. The viewers can't see that because they've got a chart on the screen. They can't see him with his hands. It's great.
Okay.
We need that new technology, where you can.
We do.
Yeah.
All right, so looking at this, we can see a really strong level across there. So I'd just like to see it get through that level before I've got some confidence in the move up, because it could just as easily flip to the downside. If it takes out this low here, then obviously I'd let it go. But I wouldn't be trying to buy this as it's getting lower. Obviously, it's got to go up.
It's got to go up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there you go. So it's good looking stock from these two, so it has to go up from now. Now we've got a text from Daryl, who is asking, please take a look at MLX. Don't hold this stock, but watching closely for the medium to long term. Daryl, what do you reckon?
Okay,
MLX.
interesting.
I think it's interesting too.
Well, you tell us why
Wow.
you think it's
Look at
interesting.
it.
You can go first.
Look at this amazing sideways move we've got here. And how often do you see a stock that bases out like that, other than Telstra, that bases out and has this strong level underneath all of this and is pushing off from that low? So I'm thinking it looks really nice, but I'd just always like to have a bird's eye view and see what's happening from a big picture perspective. We can see it's bottomed out here in the COVID correction, went all the way down to this low, but was falling well before that, so it looks like that's finished. I would really like to see it start to move up, particularly probably above this high of 36.5 cents at least, to push back through there and be closing above it. At the moment we're moved through there last month, but I'd like it to just to keep going up through that just before we know whether it's going to rise. But you know, this has some really nice little moves, and I'm liking that support. Any move to the downside, let's just have a look at the weekly chart for a sec. If we see a move back below this outside above here, obviously it's going back down to this level again, but we just want to keep seeing those higher highs moving up. But you can see from the chart, it looks a little bit odd on the chart, and that's because of the liquidity of this share. So it's not going to be for everybody. It depends on your level of risk that you're willing to take.
And it's under 50 cents, so obviously, all the points you've just mentioned, Janine. What I will do is I'll just bring it back to the monthly chart for a second. What caught my eye is this period back in, February 09 to June 2010. You've seen on this stock a previous period where it's kind of done the same thing, and then look how it's shot out really, really strongly. But why I raise that point more importantly is that before it did this, it had that really big down move starting from May 2008. Now, as we have today, we've got this big down move from April 2022. The stock's, as you've rightfully said, consolidating out here sideways. And I do think it's shown its hand in terms of it does want to go higher and giving us that first break. And if it does break higher, the only thing I'll caution is that anything below 75 cents, there is the potential that it can shoot up and then fall all the way back down. So from a longer term perspective, I'd like to see it get above that April 2022 high before I had more of a long-term bullish view on this. But if you're trading it short-term, then yeah, it looks quite nice.
All right, so they're good comments for you, Daryl. Now we've got a text from Alex who is asking, been holding Bub at 12 cents and still holding, he's a new trader too. Now just seeing what you think on the chart. So let's go and have a look at Bubs for...
We're doing a running commentary on Bub now. We're getting regular calls about it.
Yeah. There's been a few. I mean, I know a lot of people do because we did it last week as well. And I know when people, because that used to be like, they thought it was going to be the next A2 milk, and it did shoot up for a while, but it's been a bit of a dog since then.
Hasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And so a lot of people are trying to bottom pick, trying to go, oh, it's cheap, but how cheap is it? So what do you reckon, Phil?
So,
He's been holding it at 12 cents.
He's holding it at 12 cents. And look, immediately, if I just bring up the monthly chart and zoom that out, this stock screams illiquid to me. I mean, obviously, if you just look at this period here, it's very illiquid. It's gotten a bit better in terms of the range of the bars. But again, look, over the last, let's just say, since December 2022, the bars have gotten smaller again. And it looks a bit illiquid to me now. It is under 20 cents, so, and we speak about this all the time. We've spoken about, it's one thing to try and pick lows, but what you'll find a lot of the time, even in downtrends, long-term downtrends, the biggest spikes, short-term spikes, happen during those down moves.
During the downtrends.
So that's where a lot of traders get tricked into thinking, okay, it's spiked up quite nicely, I should be buying this. And to me, it looks like just another case of that. I mean, I would not take anything permanent that the momentum has changed to a bullish, let's say, picture, if you will. It's way too early.
So you're saying this could be a sucker's rally?
For sure. It's got to do a lot more for me to confirm that the buyers are really stepping in and wanting to take it higher, because, I mean, it's been falling, as you said,
Why
since
trade this one? Like,
2019.
there's so many stocks on the market.
Because that's so important, isn't it?
Because
It really
you
is
think
important.
they think at 10 cents, if it goes up to 30, 40 cents, I can make a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's the lure.
That is.
But all too often they're listening to the noise out there, whether it's chat forums, YouTube videos, whatever else, and especially new traders like Alex. I think it was Alex. They do that sort of stuff. Keep watching the show, mate, because we're going to give you some real strategies and techniques. As the more you watch the show, the more you're going to learn, and you may want to get my first book for free on it. Just pay the shipping off the website, and that'll help you with some of those stocks. But next we have a question from Gillham, who says, good evening team, by the time the show goes to air I would have hopefully completed module 4 successfully. I've started the diploma course a year ago and happy to report that my portfolio return sits at 23% at the end of April, with 15% locked in. Now I'm now much better at selling and significantly more patient before buying, and it's working much better. Would you please provide an update comment on Aurelia Metals, AMI, the ugly duckling which I entered for all the wrong reasons before I knew what I know now? I bought the stock at 9.7 cents, primarily based on fundamentals combined with the recent all-time lows, and before I started the course. Now, Dale, when the last time you spoke, your comment was not to consider an entry until at least 14 cents. Now the stock just closed at 15.5 cents, and I am now fortunate and lucky to switch to profit protection with a decent buffer. However, I still believe the upside is significant and in the range of 40 to 50 cents over the next 1.5 to 3 years. I am keen on everyone's thoughts. Read the long-term technicals and the 2 historic peaks. Regards, Gillham. What do you reckon, Janine?
Look, I mean, I like his optimism. It's it's good to be thinking.
You like it, but you don't necessarily agree with it. That's what I'm reading.
It's good to be thinking that there is upside in there, definitely, Willem. So, but I think it's starting to move up. I think he's right in terms of the fact that he thinks it's turning around. I believe that it looks like it is. I'm looking at the monthly chart there, and you can see that this nice little bottoming pattern there, and it looks like it may have retraced enough to finish this move down. You can never be 100% sure though when you're looking at stocks like this, but if we have a line across the chart and we're just checking to see where most of the activities happened for this stock, it's just above where the current price action is. So short term, there's still a slight risk of it turning back again. I would just wait till it gets through some of this resistance. If it keeps moving up from here, he could be right about the high, but I'm just not sure about his 40 cents as being the more, because it's here you're seeing all these really strong natural levels for this stock. It's turned down so many times, so if I'm looking there, it's probably more about 30 cents, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, what I'd say to Willem is, you're now, as you said, you're completing module 4, or you should have completed module 4. That means you got access to the trading essentials services that we provide students when they start module 4. And what your email is absolutely perfect for the team to do that, because this show is never going to go into the depth that you're going to get from trading essentials from our support team that are helping you. They'll help you pull apart your trading strategy, all your strats. They'll look at all your back testing, your charts, all your strategies, and they'll help you come up with the strategy on this stock, so you not only protect your profits but also keep working the right way so that you get out of it if it does turn around you. So I'd urge you, and any one of our students who are watching, or our graduates are watching, this show is not a substitute for that service. It's definitely not, because we're never ever going to get into huge depth on your stocks and your trading on the show, because we just can't. We have a lot of people watching that aren't students and graduates, so just use the trading essential services. Now let's move on. Now remember to show your support for our channel and smash that like button. Now if you enjoy watching and want to see loads more of our content, click subscribe, or click the subscribe button. Now subscribing helps others find our channel so we can help them too. Now before we let you go, tell me, what was your favourite part of the show? Was it our main topic on lithium and metal stocks, or was it one of our viewer questions? Let us know by commenting below. Thanks to all those who are watching on YouTube and Facebook. Now, if you're watching on talkingwealth.com, stay tuned for more exciting stock picks, insights and strategies. We'll be right back with all that and more. Next week in our main topic, we get into trading volatile uranium stocks that can double your investment. Make sure you join us next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Time. Now, if you love the show, remember to hit that like button right now and subscribe to our channel, as this shows your support for the team that puts in the effort each week into bringing it to you. If you are subscribed, then you will always know when we go live and put up new content. As always, thank you for joining us. For now, goodbye, good luck and good trading.